G'day there, my name's Brendan and I'm the creator of Knitwits and Yarns, and welcome to my YouTube channel. So on this episode of How To, I'm going to be teaching you how to knit an I-cord. So this is pretty much the knitting equivalent of a drawstring, and I'm going to be using this specific one to sew into the hood of my upcoming sweater design. You're going to need your yarn, obviously, a pair of double pointed needles or cable needles. This is essential. You're going to need your scissors and a sewing needle. So let's get started straight away. Here we have our I-cord. So essentially an I-cord is just a small tube of knitting. We kind of knit it in the round and it acts very, very similar to a drawstring in conventional fashion. To make our I-cord, we're going to need some yarn. We're also going to need double pointed needles. So these ones are cable needles that act as double pointed needles, or we can also use the traditional double pointed needles. It's now time to start our I-cord. So what we're going to do is a 3-stitch I-cord. We're going to wrap the yarn around our finger and pull the working yarn through that loop. To make a loop, we're going to put our needle on to or in through the loop and then fasten that. Then we're going to cast on 3 stitches. So right needle in, wrap it around, pull it down, push it up, put it back on. We've got 2 stitches now, and just repeat that to make our 3 stitches. Now what we're going to do is we're going to knit these 3 stitches as normal. So just right needle in there, wrap it around, down, and take it off. And then we do the 2nd stitch. And lastly, we're going to do the 3rd stitch. After we've completed those 3 stitches, you're going to notice that the yarn is on the left side of our work. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring our work, slide it all the way to the other side of the needle, and we're going to knit again. So normally you would turn your work and purl, but we're going to start knitting again. So in through the right, and then we're going to pull the yarn that's on the left side around and knit it as normal, but trying to tug it a little bit tighter than we normally would. We knit the 2nd one, and then we knit the 3rd one. And again, you're going to notice that the yarn is on the left side. So what we do, we just pull it to the other side of the cable needle, and we just repeat this. If you had traditional double pointed needles, it would be exactly the same method. That's essentially all there is to it. You just want to keep repeating this until you get to the length that you want. I wanted to show you a little bit of a close-up of the whole process itself. So as you can see here, we've got our yarn coming out the left side and we want to be knitting that right stitch. So as normal, just wrapping it around. You can see it doesn't look like a kind of traditional knit stitch, but it works exactly the same. So you want to knit that first one, pull it nice and tight here, and then the 2nd one, and then the 3rd one. So you want to maintain that similar tension as well, because what you'll notice is that your stitches may not be the same if you're pulling it too tight. So you want it to just be nice and snug. So pulling it around nice and snug, knitting that first one. Then we want to repeat that with our 2nd one, nice and snug, doing that, and then the 3rd one. So taking that off. And then once we get that, bring it all the way to the start again, and just simply keep repeating this. Now once we get it to the length we want, we're going to start casting it off. So to cast off, we knit the first one, then we knit the 2nd one, we pull the 1st stitch over the 2nd stitch, and then we knit the 3rd one and pull that 2nd stitch, or the 1st stitch we have on our needle, over the top of that last stitch. And that is cast off. We make a nice loop, we cut this, or in my case break it, then we pull that through the loop, and that is cast off and ready to be sewn in. So now it's time to sew it in. If you have any stitches that are sticking out like this one here, you just want to find where it kind of works, where it runs, and just give that a little tug and just keep working this running stitch until it kind of disappears, I guess. You don't want any sticking out real bad. Then we want to thread our yarn onto our needle and start sewing. There isn't exactly a perfect technique for this, but you want to try and sew in a way that you're not going against the grain. So if you notice that the stitch is going downwards, you don't want to go across it. And once you've finished sewing it in nicely, you just want to sew straight down the middle to anchor it. And then you want to cut that loose end, and you have one piece already done, one end all done. And then you want to repeat this for the other end. And again, you want to be sewing it in a way that makes it look like it sits natural. Then once you've anchored it enough, you go straight through the middle for our final part, just to hide that tail. Then what we want to do is we just want to cut the working yarn, and we have a very small version of our I-cord. The ends aren't perfect, but they'll do for this example. And here it is, all finished off and all sewn into the hood of my hoodie. So this pretty much works exactly the same as a machine made drawstring that you would buy in a shop. So it's the exact same concept. I do have a couple of pointers. Firstly, you need double pointed needles. That is absolutely essential for this technique. Secondly, make sure we're using our sewing needle to finish off the ends, making sure they look really nice, and sewing the yarn straight through the middle to kind of anchor it. And lastly, when we are knitting it, remember to pull it nice and tight when we are pulling that first stitch around. That helps to kind of close it all together and make it nice and uniform. So that is all. Thank you for coming on this I-cord journey with me. If you gained any valuable knowledge from this, please let me know. Drop a like and a comment, and you can also subscribe to grab more tutorials and how-tos on my page.